Colonel Harland Sanders was 62 years old, living on a tiny government check, and watching his life's work collapse when most people believed his story was already over. He had spent decades failing as a farmer, salesman, ferry operator, insurance agent, and restaurant owner. Yet that broke old man would eventually create KFC, a brand that spread to more than 100 countries and turned a simple fried chicken recipe into a global empire worth billions. But this isn't the story of a young genius who became rich overnight. It's the story of a stubborn outsider who refused to quit when the world had already written him off. Rejected, bankrupt, and running out of time, he climbed into an aging car and began knocking on restaurant doors with one last idea. If you're into real stories of power, money, and transformation, subscribe, because the road to Kentucky Fried Chicken began with a man who had almost nothing left to lose. 1. The boy life refused to spare. Harland David Sanders was born in Indiana in 1890, and hardship arrived long before opportunity. When he was only 5 years old, his father died unexpectedly, leaving the family without its main source of income. His mother was forced to take whatever work she could find, often leaving before sunrise and returning long after dark. That meant young Harland became responsible for caring for his younger brother and sister. While most children spent their days playing, he was learning how to cook meals, manage a household, and shoulder responsibilities far beyond his age. Without realizing it, those difficult years were teaching him the skill that would one day make him famous around the world. The pressure only intensified as he grew older. By the age of 12, school had become a luxury his family could barely afford. He left the classroom behind and began working on farms, tending animals, planting crops, and doing whatever was necessary to help keep food on the table. Then came another blow. His mother remarried, and Harland's relationship with his stepfather quickly deteriorated. Home no longer felt like a refuge. At 13, he left and began surviving largely on his own. Most future billion-dollar founders begin their journey with education, connections, or financial support. Harland began with none of those advantages. He entered the world carrying little more than determination and a growing belief that if he wanted a better life, nobody was going to build it for him. 2. The man who failed at almost everything. The years that followed looked nothing like the beginning of a business empire. Desperate to create a future for himself, Harland lied about his age to join the army and spent several months serving in Cuba. When he returned, he drifted from one profession to another, searching for stability he never seemed able to find. He worked as a streetcar conductor, railroad laborer, insurance salesman, ferry operator, and even studied law for a time. Every new opportunity felt like it could be the breakthrough he had been waiting for. Instead, most of them ended in disappointment. Some businesses failed, some jobs disappeared. Others ended because Harland's fiery personality repeatedly brought him into conflict with bosses, competitors, and even customers. By the time he reached his 30s and 40s, the pattern had become painfully familiar. He would build something, lose it, and start over again. Yet beneath the failures was a man becoming tougher with every setback. He was learning how businesses operated, how customers made decisions, and how quickly success could disappear. While others might have accepted defeat, Harland refused to stop searching. The failures piled up. So did the debt, frustration, and self-doubt. But each collapse left him with more experience than before. What looked like a lifetime of bad luck was quietly becoming an education in resilience. The world saw a man who couldn't find success. What it failed to see was a future entrepreneur collecting the lessons that would eventually make him unstoppable. 3. The chicken that changed everything. In the early 1930s, Harland began managing a service station in Kentucky. Travelers stopped for gasoline, but he noticed something important. Many of them were hungry. Instead of simply selling fuel, he started cooking meals for customers inside the station. Fried chicken quickly became the favorite. The demand grew so fast that the station evolved into a restaurant. But there was a problem. Traditional fried chicken took too long to prepare. Customers on the road didn't want to wait half an hour for a meal. Harland became obsessed with solving that challenge. After countless experiments, he developed a pressure cooking method that dramatically reduced cooking time while keeping the chicken juicy inside and crispy outside. What happened next changed everything. His restaurant became famous throughout Kentucky, and in 1935, he was awarded the honorary title of Kentucky Colonel. 4. The collapse that almost ended the dream. Just when success seemed secure, disaster arrived. In the early 1950s, a new interstate highway redirected traffic away from his restaurant. The customers disappeared almost overnight. Revenue collapsed. Bills piled up. The business he had spent years building suddenly became unsustainable. At an age when most people were retiring, Harland was forced to sell his property and start over. The risk was enormous. Living largely on a small government pension, he packed his pressure cooker into an old car and began driving across America. He visited restaurant after restaurant, offering owners his chicken recipe in exchange for a small royalty on every piece sold. Many rejected him immediately. Some barely listened. Others laughed at the idea. Yet he kept going. The story would later claim he faced more than 1,000 rejections before finding real momentum. Whether the number was exact or not, the message was clear. Almost nobody believed in the dream before it became successful. 5. From rejected grandfather to global empire. Slowly, the impossible started becoming reality. Restaurant owners began adopting his recipe, and customers loved it. The number of locations grew from a handful to hundreds. By the mid-1960s, more than 600 restaurants were selling his famous chicken. The secret blend of 11 herbs and spices had become one of the most recognizable recipes in business history. The momentum became unstoppable. Kentucky Fried Chicken expanded beyond the United States and entered international markets. In 1964, Harland sold the company for $2 million, a fortune at the time, while remaining the public face of the brand. Dressed in his iconic white suit, he became one of the most recognizable businessmen in the world. The same man who had once been broke in his 60s had built one of the largest fast food empires on the planet. Harland Sanders died in 1980 at the age of 90. But his legacy was never really about fried chicken. His greatest achievement was proving that failure is not always the end of a story. Sometimes it is simply the price of finding the right opportunity. While others saw an aging businessman running out of time, he saw one more chance to bet on himself. The contrast is almost unbelievable. A boy forced to leave school became the face of a brand recognized across the globe. A man who spent decades failing became a symbol of perseverance for generations. Do you think KFC would have existed without Sanders' relentless determination? And would you have kept going after so many setbacks? Subscribe for more stories like this, where ambition, risk, and vision reshape the world.